Hey, I have a very difficult Gemara tonight. Yes. We're on Daf Aleph on base. The Gemara starts at the top of the Aleph on base, page 2. Nisnei Shnei Mosar. Nisnei Shnei Mosar Potter. Let's say 12 Potter. Now, what is 12 Potter? It doesn't mean really 12 Potter, but on Shabbos, in the Shabbos case, you have four. There are altogether 12 cases. There are 4 in which the guy on the inside is chayav. The 4 in which the guy on the outside is chayav. Okay, and then there are 4 in which they split it, in which neither of them is chayav. Potter aval aser. 4 cases which the guy on the inside does akira and anacha, taking in to putting out. 4 cases in which the guy on the outside does that. I'm sorry, 4 cases. What?
Cases of what?
Oh, it's on Shabbos. The things. Okay. So the 4 cases in which the guy inside is chayav, or the guy inside is. I'm sorry, it's not that way. The 4 cases in which the guy on the inside is active, and 2 of them is chayav, and 2 of them is potter. Similarly, same thing with the guy on the outside. And 2 of them, the guy on the outside is chayav, and 2 of them is potter. Where the guy on the inside does akira and hanacha, he's liable, whether it's otzah or hachnasa. Where he only does akira or only does hanacha, he's potter, right? Similarly, the guy on the outside, where he does akira and hanacha, whether it's otzah or hachnasa, he's chayav. Where he only does akira, only does hanacha, he's potter. That makes altogether 8. But in the case where one guy did both akira and hanacha, right? The guy on the inside, he moved the object from the inside to the outside, right? So that's akira and hanacha. But the other guy was a participant. He didn't do any offense, but he stood there and accepted the object in his hand, right? The Baal Bayis took the object from inside, put it outside, and put it in the other guy on the outside's hand. So that's also the other guy's participating, albeit not actively. So why don't we mention that guy is being potter in the potter, which would add another 4 cases where each guy, but the guy on the inside is inactive is for 1 case of achnas and 1 case of otzah. The outside is inactive for 1 case of achnas and 1 case of otzah. So altogether that would be 12 cases. Again, including the cases where of the guy who does neither the akira nor the hanacha, but just stands there, and the akira and hanacha is done from his hand or to his hand. Why those not included? So it says more losi the mitzvah ela patushu neged and the neged achiv. We only mention the things which are patur, the patur avalaser well, actually a patur, which corresponds to a chiyuv, meaning that it could come to a chiyuv, meaning that where you did something active and were potter, right? But not where you passive and were potter. Now the Gemara at this stage is where it's a little bit of a difficult answer, because what's the difference between 2 types of patur? Yes, in one case you're potter, even though you did only that, even though you were active because you did only that kira, only the hanacha. But in the other case also you're potter. If it should be a similar case, if you did nothing, you just stood there. So the Gemara gives a more clear-cut answer in the next line. Those cases in which one guy is completely passive, that means that he did nothing. It's completely mutter for him. Now, it's true he might be Meseder over Avera. He might be helping the other guy to commit Avera. But in terms of Hilchos Shabbos, he has done nothing. So therefore, that's why those cases are not mentioned, because when it's talking about Yitzir Shabbos Shnaim Shem Arba, it's about all possible cases in which there is a Chiyuv D'Oraisa or a Issa D'Rabbanan. But it's not mentioned cases which are mutter. Again, from the perspective of Shabbos, meaning where I'm just staying there passively, and you're doing akira out of my hand or anacha into my hand. So that's why the individual in those cases is not mentioned. Okay? Amr Rabbi Yisrael said, "Ani v'ashir echadei." The truth is, there's no difference halachically between the rich guy, the poor guy standing outside, and the rich guy standing inside. There's no difference between the 2 of them. Nevertheless, Chachamim count them as 2. in order to give an example of a guy standing inside, a guy standing outside. Similarly, achnasa v'otzah. Achnasa means taking an object from a public domain and putting it inside the private domain, right? Or otzah is the opposite, taking an object from the private domain and putting it outside in the public domain. It should be the Girsa and Shabbos says echad hein. They're both the same malacha. Ubanu chachamim shnayim, changing the Girsa. Chachamim counted them as two. I would separate them for purposes of classification. Says Mara Yitzias Shabbos ein achnasa b'chlal. The Yitzias Shabbos does not include achnasa. Well, actually, it's a question. The way the Girsa is learned by the. Where's my note here? It should be like, I'm not sure where I got this from, maybe it's in B'nai Moshe. But it says, it's a way to read it. So Yitzir Shabbos, it says in, not ein. And it's like ha'im. It's a question. Yitzir Shabbos, is ha'chnasa including the Yitzir Shabbos? In which are they talking the same thing? Hamotzi rishus l'rishus, somebody who takes from one out, from a private domain to public domain. In a machnis b'chlal, is ha'chnasa included? Meaning, do they join together? So it says more od mi'ador. The Girsa and Shabbos is nishme'ina mi'ador. Let's start from this case. The Rabbi Yosef said name Rabbi Yochanan. Hichnis chatzi grogeres. If you did hachnasa, you take on half a shear. You took half a grogeres from outside into inside. V'otzi chatzi grogeres, and you took half a grogeres from inside into outside. Chayav, you're liable. So we see here, if you took half a shear, chatzi shear, did achnasa, chatzi shear did otzah, they join together and they make a whole chiyuv. So what do we see here? That achnasa and otzah are the same malach. It's basically the whole Gemara can make that point. That otzah and achnasa are the same malacha. Chachami classified them as two for purpose of taxonomy, just for categorization. But they really are the same malach, and that's why if you did half an activity with one and half activity the other, they join together and you're liable in that case. Right, well that's the abstract, reducing it, that's correct. I don't know that otzah is called a malacha altogether. Rabbi Shmuel B'Shem Yochel said by the question, of course, based on the premise which the Bible calls that otzah is malacha grua. Otzah is a poor type of malacha because all other malachas are creative. Otzah is not creative. It doesn't change the state. It just transports an object from one place to another. So I don't know if there's a form of malacha. So it says the Gemara, it says by at the time of the Mishkan, by Avihu Kol B'Machaneh, they made an announcement to the camp not to bring any more donations. They had enough. The people refrained from taking out of their houses, believing to give the treasurers. Now, what's critical in that pasuk is that the Yerushalmi is bringing. I believe when we learned Shabbos, I really didn't pay attention to this, but I believe that I has to tell us some malachas. Just talk about the Mishkan. So because the pasuk says Ish v'ishal yasu od melacha l'trumas hakodesh. It says the people shouldn't do any more malacha for the kodesh, and then it says maybe so the people stop bringing. So we see bringing something from place to place is a form of malacha because the pasuk calls it a malacha. So that's how it fits into the category of the lamates malachos. So that's otzah from their domain to the from their domain to the streets, and says the Gemara. Actually, you don't have this in your Gemara, but in Shabbos it says. I'm just reading what it says in Sechel Shabbos. I've said afilu achnasa shma mina. There's also achnasa alluded to in this pasuk. Just like they did not take stuff out of their house to bring into the public domain to give to the treasures, so to the treasures were abstained to take things from their hands and to bring it into the Beis HaMikdash. So therefore, you learn from this both for the Mishkan. You learn from this both activities being prohibited, both hotzah, taken from your house to the street, and achnasa, taken from from the street into a private domain. Okay. That's what the Gemara goes on to say. Here it's very cryptic, but that's what the Gemara means here. There's hotzah and achnasa, hotzah from their domain and achnasa to the proper offices. Based on this pasuk, says, do not take a load out of your house to be on Shabbos, on the day of Shabbos, and do not do any work. Now, this is also the end of the pasuk there. It's critical. It says, actually, in the previous pasuk, "V'altisu masa b'yom Shabbos ve'vesim shar Yerushalmi." There talks about taking something out and bringing it into Yerushalayim. So you have a tzor nachnos in that pasuk, and of course that pasuk is talking about actually Shabbos itself, right? Taking out of your house to bring the public domain, taking out of public domain, bringing it into your house in Yerushalayim. It says close holes, all that malacha forbidden on Shabbos. And there again, there's an advantage, even though it's a pasuk in Navi, not as good as a pasuk in Chumash, but at least it mentions Shabbos explicitly in that pasuk. Okay. That's true. Right. Haven't noted that point in a long time. Rabbi Avin made the following statement without attribution. Rabbi Avin said, "B'shem Rabbi Yochanan, Tznina tzate kloyim v'lo damin dein l'dein." Our Mishnah has two principles adjacent to each other, which are not similar to each other. What are they? Shavuos shtaim shem arba, maybe arba korbanos. Our Mishnah talks about Shavuos and says that there are two which are four. Two are I will do or I will not do, will or will, and there are four because there's future tense, will do or will not do, and there's past tense, did do or did not do. And maybe arba korbanos. On these four possibilities of a false shvuah, you're being korban in each one of them. On the other hand, the Mishnah talks about, here it says Megaras Negoyim, but this the Pnei Moshe changes to Yudiyas Atuma. Yudiyas Atuma shtaim shem arba maybe shtei korbanos. Yudiyas Atuma, there are two which are four, meaning forgetting the Mikdash and Kodesh, or forgetting the Tuma vis-a-vis Mikdash and Kodesh. So it's two, but you only bring two korbanos. Now, says the Gemara, who is this going like? So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Lazar b'shem Rabbi Yam Patla Chayron. He said, no, you could say, it says you're a different shot, but the truth is that's not a different shot. He's really explaining. It's hard for me to exactly figure out what's going on here. But the one initially says it's too dissimilar because of the number of korbanos, right? Then the Gemara says it's not dissimilar because it's two different tanoim. And two different tanoim can have two different opinions about how many korbanos you bring. And that's what's going on here. Rabbi Akiva said that. Rabbi Akiva holds that there are four korbanos under those circumstances. Maros Shnaim Negoyim Shnaim Shem Arba. The Maros Negoyim, which actually should again be Yudiyas Atuma, the awareness of Tuma before you enter the Beis Hamikdash, or and after you enter the Beis Hamikdash and went and inadvertently Tomei or ate Kodesh in a Tomei, Shnaim Shem Arba, that's the two which are four, and that there are only two korbanos under those circumstances, meaning for Tumas Mikdash, not for Tumas Kodesh. But Rabbi Shmuel holds that you don't only bring the korbanos if you enter the Beis Hamikdash not knowing that you're Tomei, not if you ate Kodesh not knowing you're Tomei. That's going to Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Chagai, Rabbi Chagai asked, boy, L'kumi Rabbi Yossi says, V'lama Lake Rabbi Shmuel. You know what, I think I messed up here. Now I realize what I did. Okay, I'm sorry, I may have messed up here. Let me go back. Rabbi Yochanan to the seventh line from the bottom. Yochanan he learned two principles, meaning that there are Mishnah's two principles are not similar to each other. Shavuos shtaim shem arba, maybe arba korbanos. He wants to know that our Mishnah is going in its entirety like Rabbi Akiva. Now I understand it actually. He wants to learn our Mishnah going entirely like Rabbi Akiva, and therefore there's no similarity between the two cases. In other words, he wants to say that our Mishnah is going according to the entire Rabbi Akiva. If it's entirely like Rabbi Akiva, then by Shavuos there's four korbanos, and by korban, by tuma, by entering Beis Hamikdash tummy, there are only 2 korbanos. Why? Because Rabbi Akiva holds that on eating kodesh, not Rabbi Shmuel, my mistake. Rabbi Akiva is the one who holds that if you eat kodesh betuma, inadvertently you don't bring a korban on that. So the Mara says the Mishnah has an inconsistency. In the first case, there are 4 korbanos. In the second case, only 2 korbanos. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yavin, Patzal, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Yavin gave another spin to this. He explained it differently. He said Shavuos 2 Shem Arba. He said Shavuos 2, which are 4. Rabbi Akiva Omer. Rabbi Akiva is the one who mentioned, who said that part of the Mishnah, and therefore there are 4 korbanos. Shavuos 2 Shem, Yedias Atuma 2 Shem Arba. Rabbi Shmuel, that's Rabbi Shmuel holds that there are 4 korbanos under those circumstances, because he holds you bring a korban both for Tumas Mikdash and for Tumas Kodesh. So now, with the difference between Rabbi Yochanan's perspective and Rabbi Elazar's and Rabbi Yochaman's perspective, Rabbi Yochanan wanted to say it's all one Tana. It's all Rabbi Akiva. And the case is different. Because in one case, there are 4 possible korbanos. It's the case of Shavuos. All possibilities generate korbanos. The other case of Yedias Atuma, there are only 2 possible korbanos. Because only bring on Tumas Mikdash, when you forgot the tumor or forgot that it's the Beis Hamikdash, you don't bring on Kodesh. Rabbi Ivan would prefer to set up the Mishnah as being the different Tanoim, but be consistent in the number of Karbanos. And therefore the first case is Rabbi Akiva holds that you bring 4 Karbanos in the case of Shavuos, and each possible Shavuos you bring 4 Karbanos. The second case is Rabbi Shmuel holds that in each type of forgetfulness of Tumah, whether you forgot the Tumah or forgot the Mikdash or forgot the Kodesh, then you bring a korban under all those circumstances. So that would be like Rabbi Shmuel. So the question is whether it's better to learn Mishnah with inconsistent cases and the same Tana, or with consistent cases but 2 different Tanoim. So Rabbi Chagoy, boy, from Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chagoy asked for Rabbi Yossi, why do you have to say the end of the Mishnah of Rabbi Shmuel? Rabbi Akiva, I said, can you go to Rabbi Akiva? Now this is a very strange Gemara. It seems like he just didn't know the halacha. He didn't know Rabbi Akiva holds. He thought Rabbi Akiva holds that their karbanos, if you were aware that you were tamei and then forgot and entered the Beis Hamikdash and then became remembered again, or if you were aware that you were tamei and forgot and then ate karbanos and remembered again, which is of course not Rabbi Akiva's position. That's what Rabbi the answer. Somebody says, Mani Slayel and Tumem and Mikdash. Who's the one who holds that in both those possibilities, which leads to all 4 altogether? Because sometimes you forget the Kodesh, sometimes you forget the Tumah, right? So those 4 possibilities are Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel. This is not going to Rabbi Shmuel. V'nan boik Rabbi Akiva. We want to set it up to Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva does not hold that 4; he holds only 2. Says Marpam Sheyesh Sham Sheyesh Kan Helim Tumah Valley Mikdash. Sometimes you forget both that you were tamei, and you forget in the Beis Hamikdash you think you're going to Orlando, and it should be for killing a Ephraim Chase V'Chayev Shnaim. You're liable to 2 korbanos. Why are you liable to 2 korbanos? Hey Chavida, what's the case? In other words, he takes up in a Chayev Alachs and makes a Chayev Shnaim. How does it work? Nitma V'Yoda became tamei, and he became aware that he became tamei. Now he made a tumah, then he forgot the tumah again. V'nichlas hamikdash, and he entered the Beis Hamikdash, v'yotza, and he came out v'yoda. So he knew he was tamei, forgot and ate a korban, remembered again, forgot and entered the Beis Hamikdash, came out and there's a word remembers again. Wants to know how many korbanos he's chayav. I want to know how many korbanos he's chayav. He entered the Beis Hamikdash. You became tamei, forgot. Entered the Beis Hamikdash. What? Then he came out, became aware that he became tamei, forgot again, ate a korban. Then he became aware again. What?
2.
So that's 2, right? According to Rabbi Shmuel, it's 2. That's what you say. Pa'amim should get according to the Ephraim Sheish. Parashish kan helim tumah v'helim mikdash v'chayev shnaim. That's exactly the way you just cheshbon. In this case, he's chayav 2 korbanos. Now, nelam mimenu mikdash. Nelam mimenu mikdash v'nichlas lemikdash. V'yotza, That's the second part of the case, right? Yeah, I picked up the middle of the case. Let me start again from the Echavida. Let's case Nidma V'yada, he came to him and became aware of it. Now my man, and he forgot that Tuma, Nichos and Mikdash, he went in base Mikdash, V'yada, he came out, V'yada, and remembered again. Now he remembered Mikdash, then he forgot. Oh, you're right, I said the case the second time around is Kodesh. That's not what it says here. Sorry. That would only be like Rabbi Akiva. It's even going to show because it says, now he meant Mikdash, again, the second time forgot he was entering the base of Mikdash. But he twice forgot he's entering the base of Mikdash. And the second time wasn't Kodesh. Sometimes also the base of Mikdash, okay? V'yad, and he came out, V'yad, Arekan, Helim, Tum, Helim, Mikdash, you have Helim, Tum, and Helim, Mikdash, only two forgetfulnesses. One of Tum and one of Mikdash, but there is nevertheless, Chayiv Shtaim, again, change the gears the Ephraim does. Chayiv Shtaim is liable twice because he knew Tuma, forgot, and the base of Mikdash, remembered again, forgot again, and the base of Mikdash, and then remembered again. So that's his Chayiv Shtaim.
If you forget that it's Shabbos and you do the same Avera,
if it's hell,
you remember it's Shabbos, you forget again,
right?
You do the same Avera.
You have a separate korban.
Yeah.
The same way as Shabbos, 100%. Okay. However, sometimes you become aware several times and forget several times. Liable for one korban. How so? Hey, it should be going to the from Hechavir. How does it work? So it says when Nitma. V'yada, he became Tamei and he became aware of it. Now in man Tumah, and then he forgot. While he still he forgot about the Tumah, now in man Mikdash, he forgot also about the base of Mikdash. Nichlas the Mikdash, he went to the base of Mikdash, V'yatz, and he came out, V'yada, and he became aware again that he was, that he had become Tamei. V'amei said, Tumazu ein chayav aleh korban. But he comforts himself. He says, and the tumah which I was tummy wasn't enough to make you chayav korban. I forget what gradations they are, but there are gradations. So therefore, sheretz, I don't want to be a korban. I remember. But name it, he comforts himself as nish gefährlich was the chab getan. It wasn't so bad what I did, because I'm not liable for korban. Then, however, the Gilin Ephraim throws in here, v'nichlas hamikdash. Now he adds the beit hamikdash again, the moron, right? V'yatz, and he comes out v'yada, right? And he comes out and he knows, okay? So that's so it's again he entered basically the second time, so he entered twice. And Nidman he comes to me again v'yada, and he becomes aware. Now my men too much now my men too many forgot the tumah. Achubel tumah now my men mikdash. While forgetting the tumah, he also forgot about the Beis Hamikdash. So he entered Orlando thinking his Torah, even though he was. Oh, not Orlando. No, he forgot. He thought he was entering Orlando Tor. In reality, he was entering Jerusalem Tomei, right? Nelly Meno Mikdash. Now, while he was in concealment, in terms of the, he didn't know about the Tumah. He forgot about the Beis Hamikdash as well. Nichlas Hamikdash v'yatzan, he came to the Beis Hamikdash several times. If he'll come upon him, even several times. Under the assumption he was Torah, under the assumption that he's not liable. But Sophia, and later on he finds out, Arei Khan Yekama Yidil Salem was several awarenesses and forgetfulnesses. Nevertheless, there's only one liable for one korban. What? Because he never got fully out of the helim. So even when he became aware that he was tumah, he thought it wasn't a tumah which actually makes him chayav. So he never fully got out of the original state of forgetfulness. Even though he had like partial, fragmentary, realizations, but never fully exiting that state of the first helim. Right. Had it been a full-blown yediyah, then he wouldn't. That would have been an interruption in the amount of korbanos. But he never reached that stage. Maybe.
What I don't follow is that he didn't think. It's two different things. He didn't realize he was tummy, and he also didn't realize that he was actually in the base of Mikdash. He thought he was in Orlando. So isn't that a second carbon that you would need?
No, because it's still helimachas. Even though they're two different catalysts,
Components.
right, it's still considered to be helimachas. That's an excellent question, but it's still considered to be helimachas. Okay? Piska, new topic. Maris Negoyim Shtaim Shem Arba. By Negoyim, it's 2 which are 4. Now, the truth is, I really planned on having doing this where there was a board, but we're not. No, it's not worthwhile. Is there a blank piece of paper behind you in the printer, or semi-blank? Okay. This is an education. We must have learned this in Shavuos in the Bavli, but I have no recollection of this, and the odds are I'll forget it immediately after tonight as well. Okay, we have in the Torah 2 types of Negoim and 4 colors which we associate with them. And I'll write them down. What?
Sounds like there was a chart in the art school.
Yeah, it really was. Okay, there's in the third stuff there's a Baheres, which is the color of snow. There's Talot Baheres, which is plaster. There's Seis, which is white wool, and there's Talot Seis, which is eggshell. Now the order of colors is as I put that. Snow is the purest. Plaster is the next. Like whitewash, actually. Then you have, afterwards you have white wool, and then you have eggshell. The assumption is right now, or actually the assumption the Gemara is going to argue is that these 2 join together. If they need to be mitzvah, then these 2 join together. These 2 join together. They need to be mitzvah, then join together to make up the shiur. The first one and the second one, by Harris, and Seis, thank you. They go together as well, but not the Toloda with the Toloda. Okay? So far so good?
So if you have, like, instead of, you're supposed to have grease, right? The size of the grease.
Right.
So you only have half a grease of one and half a grease of the other.
Right. Okay, and they'll still join together. Okay, so says the Gemara, says the Gemara, Rabbi, Maris Goyim Shtaim Shemar. Rabbi says that Rishol Yoshua ben Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Akiva. Yoshua, the son of Rabbi Akiva, asked Rabbi Akiva the following question. He asked him, why do we bother with this classification? What good does this classification do us? We don't learn anything out of this classification. You know what we should say? We should just say that there are four gradations of color. Why 2 which are 4? Armalotzi said, "Being la mayomo." Now Rabbi Akiva asked him, "What would you want to say?" Armalotzi said, "Yomu ikrum beitzel maltami." Let people say any whiter color than eggshell is tome. Now, very important to bear in mind. Their eggshells are much darker than ours. As you know, if you've ever seen brown eggs, right? They're much darker. But say so, anything darker than brown is tummy. So says Amara, he said, he said, now it should be instead of Lomar Shimbaim Bakabam shows the main one in the Goyim, it should be Shraiter so says, and brings it down from the Rash in the Mishnayos. Shem Mitzdarfim same said. They're put this way to tell us that they join together. But they don't all join together. Right? Remember, that's what he said. They're put in groups because this joins with this, and this joins with this, and even this joins with this, but this does not join with that. Or this with that, or that with this, etc. Okay? That's what we needed. Okay? So in order to tell us that the gradations, how they join together. Says the Mimi 9 should be started from the same. How do we know that they join together? Amar said, Mano osan chachamim, shnayim, mano osan arba. They count them as 2, and they counted them as 4. Meaning the 2 are the two heads, Seisin and Baheres, and the 4 include the 2 tolados, the 2 subordinate ones. So Mashlam mitzdarim zeh zeh, just like one second. So to just like the 2 head, the goyim join with each other, so too the toes join with the heads. But not with each other. In other words, plaster joins with snow, and eggshell joins with white wool, and white wool joins with snow, but eggshell doesn't join with what? Or any of them. Plaster or snow. Eggshell doesn't join with plaster or snow, and plaster is not joined with white wool or eggshell. Okay. So it says the Gemara. Rabbi Lezer Shem Rabbi Yavin, Lezer name Rabbi Yavin. Im Sheino Mino Mitzdarif Lo Koshke Mino. So he says if they I think we're saying is also Tolados join with each other. In other words, Tolos Baris and Tolos Seis do join with each other as well. So he says, if Ace and Baheres join together, they're not the same type, right? Lo Koshkein min b'mino. It's certainly true about type and type. Now I look at it again. I have a cross out on my Gemara, and I think the first time I learned it before I crossed out was correct. What I said now is fully. What I think they say is like this. He's just supporting what we said a moment ago. He's saying if Seitz and Tolado join together, Seitz and Baheres join together, so the white wool and the snow, so certainly white wool can join with eggshell and snow can join with plaster. They're just giving a logic, saying if Seitz and Baheres go together, Seitz and its which is Min B'Sheino Mino, 2 different types of affliction, so do Seitz can go with its Tolado with any derived category from it as well. Okay? Yeah? Seitz can go with its Tolada and Baheres can go with its Tolada. He's reiterating. He's saying, if snow and white wool go together, then snow and plaster go together and white wool and eggshell go together. Okay, I don't think he's adding anything. I thought it was adding something, but now it's clear to me that it doesn't. Amr said, Vayu eng siv kan ela v'haya. When it talks about the tzaras, it says in singular, not vayu, but vaya. The limit, it should be sheinun mitzdarfim zeh, they all join together. Sounds like he also even Tolados join together. Because it says, because he says everything joins together. Taichiski said, Lenigay tzaras, same idea, different drasha. It says, does say Lenigay tzaras, different types of tzaras, Elenega tzaras, and affliction, singular. The Lami teaches us, sheinun mitzdarfim zeh, they all join together.
So if they all join together, why do we have 2 different categories for 2
so am I right? So he said, if we're back to that, then Rabbi Yeshua's question, Rabbi Akiva comes back. Say all those things are mitzdarif together. Your question, right? Why categorize them? Right? So here the Shaitan brings down Girsa. So he said, Lomar, to tell us that kol koin shein a baki ben mishmosem ein a ros in a koin. It's like a Balabatish answer, right? It's true, there's no nafkamina halacha, but medaf isn't. You have to know what's what in order to pass in ilchos in the koin. No nafkamina, but you have to know the taxonomy in order to be considered suitable to pass. Academic, right? So on my later he said, so you counted, he said, v'yoyim u'maris negoyim arba. So let's say that maris negoyim are 4. Why does it say 2 which are 4? So if it's order to tell us that they're different, they have to be bucky, what they are, and their names are, just say the 4. Then why does it say 2 which are 4? Why that funny language? So it says the Mara, V'yehei zeh It teaches us they're not one above each other. Now what does it mean not one above each other? One above each other would be like this. Baharis joins with Baharis, Tolas, Baharis, Ace, and Tolas, Ace. Snow, plaster, white wool, eggshell. If you held that they were right wing Seder, that means, let's say you had a half a shear of each nega. So Baharis would join with Tolas Baharis. Tolas Baharis would join with Seis. Seis would join with Tolas Seis. You go down the totem pole. You'd say it's continuous. You have 4 categories continuous, so you say each category joins at least with the category below it. Perhaps with all the additional categories, but certainly with the category below it, right? But Seis, which is 4, we're saying it's dafka that it's like this. Baharis joins with Tolas Baharis, and Seis joins with Tolas Seis. Not like it is, not all together, as he puts it here, Zelamalam Zeh. No, it's not Zelamalam Zeh. So in essence, the Shayat Yisrael proposes, based on that, a new dichotomy. He wants to say that the way to make it work is to learn like this. That this is the order.
Is there any chronology of which comes first in the development of the Tzuras?
No, well, not that. I'm sure there is, but I don't know what it is.
And you don't make a prognosis as to when it's going to get better?
No. He learns like this. It's not in order of the color. Rather, Baharis is adjacent to Seis because they join together, and the Baharis skips to Baharis, Tolas Baharis, and Seis skips to Tolas Seis. Now, this is a poor way of drawing it. Actual way to draw is like this. This is the way the Gemara is going to say to draw it on when we get to Amud Aleph. Baharis is king. It's the whitest. They use tide. The Baharis is the whitest. The next whitest is Seis, but it's not as white as Baharis. Seis is white wool. The next white is Tolas Baharis. That's plaster. The next white is Tolas Seis with his eggshell. Okay. So the way they join together, is that Baharis and Tolas Baharis join together. Baharis and Seis join together. Seis and Tolas Seis join together. But what doesn't join together?
Which is like what
Right.
said.
Right. Two below and also something else. Tolas Baharis doesn't join with Seis, and Tolas Seis doesn't join with Baharis.
Oh, that's different.
Okay?
Yeah, right, that's one.
So that we don't do. So now this way, it's really the two which should have been, the order which should have been Baharis, snow, Tolas Baharis, plaster, Seis, white wool, Tolas Seis, eggshell, is really Baharis, Seis, Tolas Baharis, Tolas Seis. Okay, in the pecking order, that's the way they're arranged. You see that? This guy's the highest. This is the lateral move brings the second highest. Lateral move back brings you the third highest. Lateral move back brings you the lowest. Okay? So amen. So it says more, what do you care to say they're in order? What difference does it make? Why do you have to put them in this funny order? Says the Gemara, if you put them in order, you would have said, when it becomes darker, it's Tameh. And the darker from the darker is Tameh as well. In other words, I would say, if I kept them in order like I had them over here, I'd say Baheres becomes darker. What does it become? Alodas Baheres. It becomes Tameh. When it becomes darker than that, what does it become? Se'es, and it remains Tameh. Can't say that, because the Torah says, Im Keyo HaNega, it's Torah. So you can't have an order in proper order, because then it would just get darker and darker and remain tummy. It's got to be that after Tolodas Baheres, the thing below, but nothing directly below. That way I can say that once it gets dark in Tolodas Baheres, nothing happens after that. Does that make sense? If you have it linear, direct line, then after Tolodas Baheres is another tummy rung as it gets darker and darker, right? If you don't learn it linear, you learn it in two lines, then when it gets darker and darker, eventually the bottom drops out of it. It doesn't after the second time. Because in this modified chart, there's nothing below time number 2. Okay? So that's what I was about to say. It's a tough Gemara. Don't have any illusions. I know I'm making it very easy. Haha. Yes. What? Saras. Saras leprosy. So that wasn't totally right. So that's it. Say the Torah says v'nekeo hanega. If it gets darker, it's still a nega. For that we for hakea tome. As initially if it's gets darker one rung, it remains tome. But hakea minakea. But if it gets darker from that, it's potter, right? It's tar. So therefore, that's what he's saying. If you list things linearly like this, then once Baheres goes down to Lotus Baheres, you can still go down to the Seis and to Lotus Seis. The only way you can get out of this, the only way you can say is when it gets 2 rungs darker, it stops being Tomei, is if you learn it like this.
Well, the reason is that say on the first page, Seis is a dark, applies as a darker color
Right.
than Toratas.
Yeah.
Which it's not according to the
No, but it is a dark color. That's the thing. We're not arguing Matthias. It is a darker color, but it's a different orbit. This is actually going to cause us grief later on. Probably not going to get there tonight, but that will cause grief.
So order of color is on the first page, linear.
Right. Simple order of color, right? And this is not order of color. Okay. So in any event, the truth is, the way I put it in my Gemara initially, before I gave it to you, I did have it I did have it linear in this chart too. It's just a different linear. In other words, what you would do is, it would work out this way too. Let's imagine they're all squeezed together. So what you would have is, Baheres. No, it works out better, so we're not going to confuse them. More is about to say, you'll see. The Sayyik of the Mara B'chinin, it goes to what Rechina said. L'shnei Melachim, it's like 2 kings, L'shnei Afarchim, and 2 noblemen. Afarchim is like a governor. Malko Shozeh, Godami Malko Shozeh. One king is greater than the other king. In other words, the king of France is greater than the king of England. Okay? And therefore, Mifrachel Shozeh. And therefore the governor in France, whatever under official it is, right, is greater than the governor in England, right? But Ein Afrachel Shozeh, Godami Malko Shozeh. This one's governor is not greater than the other guy's king, right? These are 2 kings. Baheres and Seis are kings. These are 2 governors. Tolas Baheres and Tolas Seis. So this king is better than this king, and this governor is better than this governor. But this governor is not better than this king. Okay, that's what it means. Okay? Shmuel said the same marshal differently. It's like differently. It's like 2 kings, Shnei Shagrim, they're 2 ambassadors. Malko Shozeh, Godami Malko Shozeh. The king, one is greater than the king, the other. V'shagriya of Shozeh, the ambassador, one greater than the other. V'shagriya of Shozeh, Godami Malko Shozeh, but one guy's ambassador, not greater than the other guy's king. For some reason, we're having lots of fun, and we give another marshal like this. Don't ask me what I want to decide. It has to give so many Rishonim like this. Yes. Rabbi Chanina, B'Shem Rabbi Acha Bar Achva said, it's like Melech v'Rav Chele, it's like a king and his general. and an arktaba, which is some lower form of regent, the Reish Galusa and his exarch, meaning that the king has a general. There, that's this, and the other kind of ruler has an exarch, and that's this. So actually, he gives different positions than the previous Gemara. Okay, I guess so. It sounds like it's the Reish Galusa. Amen. So I'm not sure what an arktaba is. There's no Lieberman to tell me what an arktaba is. I'm Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, Kum Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi said in front of Rabbi Yossi, Masnisa Amra, the Brisa said Yitzchak can go to daven, and I have to penalize them because they all came late tonight. Okay, Masnisa Amra. The Brisa says that, I'm penalizing myself too, but Masnisa Amra, Masnisa Amra. The Mishnah says, now here it says She'enon. So either you change this to She'inun, like we did before, we should change it to She'ein. The Shai Yisrael changes it. I'm not going to learn the rest of the like it. The rest of I'm going to learn my own way. But that change, I think, must be made. The following Brisa teaches us that they are one above the other linearly. Not this way, the fancy way, but this way. But the following Brisa teaches us this. Says the Gemara like this. Says Brisa, Ima says, it's a limud. Says Ima says right, the right word. Shekeo min hakeo shallah. If it gets dark in two rungs, it falls off the charts, right? If it get one rung darker is eggshell, two rungs darker is tar, right? Obviously, right? So there it says Ima says Shekeo min hakeo shallah tar, where that which is darker than darker is tar. Yesh lamar sheni, it does have a toloda, which is eggshell. So then by Heres, Shekeo min hakeo shallah tame, by Heres, where darker than it is tame, even darker from darker ultimately, right? But clearly darker than it is, the double dark is tame. So lo koshkin shelo marshei, it certainly has a toloda. In other words, if seis, which drops out when it goes down three rungs, is a toloda, the second rung. Certainly Baharis, which as it goes down, still remains in levels of tumah. So clearly, it also must have a toloda. So what do we see here? The Gemara is not learning Baharis has ke'am min hakeos tar. No, Gemara says Baharis ke'am min hakeo is tame. So obviously, this Brisa actually. So this Brisa is learning that's a linear progression, not two separate tracks, single track linear, and that's why by says tar tame mina darker than dark is there's nothing, it's tame. But Baher is darker than dark, it's still tame.
And that Baharis could combine with the Toloda.
Right. Well, also Bakoinis could combine with Tolodas. That's right. Okay. That's the natural inference, right? So it says the Gemara, Amalei Chami. So he said, that's the end of the Brisa. So he said, Chami ma mar. See what you said. You said it should be the Shai Yisrael changes it. A shlishi had yeshla sheni lo koshkin. Switch numbers. So it would say if it's got a third, meaning if it drops down two rungs and remains stomach, it certainly must have its own toloda. That's what we're saying. So macham it's meimar behem parish kem nekeh shelo tame. What do we how do we know? What do we say here? We're saying by Heres, you only know logically it must have a toloda. So it sounds like Ace, we know it has a toloda. How is that? It was saying if Ace has a toloda, even though it's lower down, and when you go double dark, it's star. So Beher Zichar has a toloda. So it sounds like we know Seis has a toloda. How do we know Seis has a toloda? Maybe we don't know any tolodas, right? So it says Mar, Zusha, Tame Zu, again, Macham is Meir Beher Shekem Nekeshel Tame, Shab Moiner Shel Seis Kikrum Beitza. Because you'd said that the Seis has its own toloda, which is the white wool has eggshell. So if you said that snow has plaster, but how do you know that Baher Seis has its own toloda? So it says Mara Baheres uBaheres. I'll tell you. Because it says in Pasuk Baheres. Sapachas is Sheni LeBaheres. Sapachas is Lord Baheres, but Sapachas is a generic word. More it's going to explain. Seis on the other hand, so Seis, that's Seis. And then it says Amok, that Shayla says, deep is the Talot of Seis. Why? Malish, because Seis and Amok are two terms which have meaning. Seis, what does Seis mean? Malish and Seis Mukbas. It means higher up, uplifted. Kemaratzel Gavoy Maracham, it's like a shadow which is shinier than the sun. So it means white wool is lighter than the skin. So it's like a raised. It's raised. It's looks higher up than the skin. Okay? As by Maloshon Amok, right? What is Loshon Amok? Amuka Mimarechama, deeper than the sun. Shemuka Mimaretzel. Well, it's like the sun is deeper than the shade. And the way he's learning is that, I'm not sure exactly, I might have to change the gears a little bit on that, but it's late. But in any event, basically what he's saying is that Amok is referring to eggshell, because eggshell is darker than the skin. So that means it sinks into the skin, right? So white wool is something which looks raised on the skin because it's lighter. Eggshell looks darker, lowered on the skin because it's dark. Because it's dark. The contrast, right? So there, the related progression between Av and Tolada is an obvious one and explicit in the pasuk because of the etymological derivation of Seis and Amok, right? But Sapachas, Malosh and Sapachas, what does Sapachas mean? It's just a generic language. Sapachas means tefillah, tack on category. Sapachas means something added on. Forget who says it's one of the curses on the house of Eli. That's what it was. They're going to say the members of the house of Eli tack me out to one of the house of Kuna, one of the other houses, because their house will be destroyed. So we don't know that Sapachas actually means a Tolada Baheres. So we actually infer it only from logic. We say if Seis explicitly has a Tolada, which is the Amok, then Kavachomer, that Baheretz, which is lighter, has a Tolada, which is by dint of elimination indicated by the word Sapachas. Okay? Says the Gemara on Reb Lezer. What? Right, it's a good point, which is the reason why we need a drasha to learn that, because Sapachas actually is not even next to Baheretz. That's a good point, right? So that firms up the Gemara's reasoning. By the way, everything I'm saying is only me. I don't. Fei Moshe and the Ridbaz learn to lead from shop, but they have to change a lot of your souls and stuff, and we're pretty much straight. So anyway, so I think my shot is better. Also, it's much easier than whatever they say. So whenever they throw in outside facts, it kind of turns me off. So you have to. So it says. Amar Elazar said, "Zudi Rabbi Yishmael Yekiv." This is all Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yekiva speaking. Seis uBaheres achas. Seis and Baheres are level 1. Those are both avos. Sapachas Shnil says Sapachas is actually indicates that each one is a Tolada. Whereas the word Sapachas goes on both. So they're learning out not that Seis says Amok and Baheres says Sapachas, but Sapachas is the term for Tolada for both of them. Masti Somer Kain. And there's a Mishnah which in Bryce indicates it says Naseis Mispachas Seis in here means or Mispachas Aza. There's Aza is of course more brilliant, stronger. So Mispachas Seis is Sapachas being a Tolada of a Seis, that's the eggshell. Sapachas Aza is Sapachas of the brighter Nega, that is the plaster, which is the Tolada of the snow. Okay? So that's how we learn out that the learns out not that Amok is the Tolada of Seis and Baheres Sapachas is the Tolada of Baheres, but Sapachas is the generic term for Tolada for both of them. Okay.